Another episode of Done Dissertation Office Hours. I'm your host, Dr. Ramon Goings, founder of Done Dissertation, where we demystify the dissertation process so that doctoral students can write and defend their dissertation in 1 year or less. I'm really excited for this conversation because we're going to talk about 4 ways to make impact and income from your doctorate. This live comes from just a lot of doc students in our programs who are often trying to figure out, like, what do I do next once I earn it, right? So a lot of y'all have been so hyper focused on getting your dissertation done, which of course you should be. Like, don't get me wrong. That's the goal here, is to finish this degree. A lot of us don't think about what's next in this process. And as a result, we leave a lot of opportunity on the table with not having thought through, like, what do we want to do with our doctorate after it's done? But today I really want to talk about, like, what are the ways that you can make impact and income from your doctorate? So this all comes from, because at the core, I want to see folks win. And I think that getting your doctorate puts you in position to, for what a lot of people see is like the income side, right? And initially I went to my doctoral program with that mindset. I thought, well, if I earn a terminal degree, I'll have more income, opportunities later on, which is true. But I think it's more than that, because at some point you're going to, you reach the income levels that you want, but it's really about the impact. And so today I really want to talk about both of these things. I think they both go in tandem. And I think they're both really important to finishing our doctorate. And it's all about what's next. And I want to talk about 4 ways that you can make impact and income once you get your doctorate. And these are some things that you can actually start to think about right now if you are the current doctoral student. And for my folks who are finished, I think this is something that we all need to consider, because I see a lot of opportunities that higher ed professionals and those with their doctors leave on the table because they're not thinking through, like, how do I actually leverage this degree? And so I want to talk about some ways and some shifts that you need in order to do that. And this comes from my own experience. So these are some things I really want you to think about. The first way I think you can make impact and income from your doctorate, it first starts with the mindset shift. So before we talk about any strategy, if your mindset is not right, none of the strategies I'm going to share are going to work. So first, it's all about mindset. And what I want you all to start adopting and thinking through is this mindset that you are willing and able to put yourself out there, and talk about what you do. So there are a lot of folks who are, earn their doctorate. And I see this a lot of times when people ask, who say that they're scared to go online and talk about what they do. But I think this is so important. In order to make impact and income from your doctorate, people have to know that you're actually doing what you say that you're doing. So first things first, that you have to be willing to put yourself out there. And, you all see me here every week, right? Just about. But at its core, I'm an introvert. So, like, actually doing this thing was something really hard that I had to overcome. So I know what it's like to be in a position where you don't want to put yourself out there because, you might be concerned about other people. You might be concerned, like, what you're saying is not perfect. You might be concerned with, I don't know, what your visual looks like, all these things that will just deter you from getting things done. These are the things that I went through. And I think for me, it actually started earlier than just now when I got into working with Done Dissertation and doing research and those types of things. I can remember, right, when I was a kid, it's funny how these things kind of pop back up and impact you. So when I was a kid, right, there was this, I'm musically gifted or whatever, right? So I play like a lot of different instruments. I love music. I got a degree in music. So, like, I really do. I love music. And so when I was a kid, I used to love to sing. And my mom, like most moms will do, is like, oh, my child's good at singing. Let's get them opportunity to sing in front of people. And so what my mom did is put me, we go to church. And she's like, oh, you should sing that song with the, the children's choir, and you should be the solo act. I'm like, all right, whatever. I had no problem doing it at home or whatever. When my mom would ask me to sing for folks, I'd do it. But then this particular time, she asked me to sing in front of the church. And so this church I went to, Faith Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church in Stamford, Connecticut. So any Connecticut folks, you know what this church is. It's a pretty big church. And so I get up in front of the audience to sing this song, right? I can't remember at this point what the song was, but I go to sing the song, and y'all, I just freeze. When I practiced it, even at rehearsal, there was nobody in the audience. But when I got up there on that Sunday, it was an audience. I just froze. I just couldn't, I started to sing the song, and then, some of my stuff was just off. It just wasn't clicking at all. And it's bad when you're in a black church. So for folks, if you're in a black church, you'll hear this. When somebody's singing and they may not be where they need to be, or they might be, struggling with a song, you might hear that lady in the front to say, bless your heart, child. Take your time. Take your time. And, if you start hearing take your time, like, they mean to hurry up and get off, right? So that's the things that I started to hear. And so with that, I froze. And honestly, that stopped me for a long time from, like, being and doing anything in public. Honestly, I think to this day, I prefer to play musical instruments because I had almost like that instrument to hide behind versus like being out there as a singer. So shout out to anybody in the audience if you're a singer and they hit you and you're okay with going out and just doing that, because that's a hard job, because all just you and the mic in front of everybody. There's nothing that you can hide behind. That note is off. That note is off. At least on the keyboard or something else, you can pick things back up. Shout out to Carrie. She said, "Not bless your heart." Yeah, those are the things that happen, and that's just part of how this thing goes. And just it's just real. Doc Diller says, "I love this. Take your time, Doc. You know exactly what happens when they say take your time. It's a wrap." And so that was what happened. And so again, that experience froze me. And so I know for a lot of folks, you may have had similar experiences where you've been in a situation where you may have, had, something with your speech, maybe, have impacted you from putting yourself out there, or you're just scared about what other people say. Like, I know it is to be like locked like that, but I promise you, if you are looking to make impact and income from your doctorate, you are going to have to get past this, because that is the only way people are going to know about what you do. Essentially, if no one knows who you are and you don't talk about what you do, no one can provide any opportunity, whether that be financial, whether it be a connection, anything, because they don't know what you do. They don't know how to find you. So this becomes really important. And the thing for me is that, which is funny now that I think back on it, I had that experience as a kid. I stopped kind of doing all that stuff public facing for a long time. I love playing instruments. That was cool. I could hide behind it. I could do that. That was okay. But now I literally get paid thousands of dollars to go out and public speak. The joint actually is crazy to me. And the only way I overcame it was to be willing to, put myself out there. And I remember in undergrad, I had a college professor in a communications class who, was teaching us about public speaking. And I remember I had to give a talk about why the NCAA should pay student athletes. And I was a basketball player in college. And so that was something I was passionate about. And I found that was very easy to talk about something that I knew a lot about, one that I had practice, and then two that I was passionate about. And so that was really the turning point. And now, like I said, I go around, country giving talks and doing these things and getting paid thousands of dollars to do it. But it all starts from making the shift in my mind that I've got to be willing to put myself out there. And here's the thing, for a lot of you all who are concerned with how others will, interpret what you're doing. I know a lot of people hit me up and like, man, I love what you're doing, but I'm nervous to do it because I'm concerned with my colleagues at work or about what they're going to say. I'm concerned about my family members. Like, look, if you're in the business and you're using your message, your voice to make money, you got to not be concerned with what anybody else thinks. Like, literally, it's a race with you and you alone. Because if you start considering everybody else's perspectives, you'll start talking and delivering a message and being influenced by other people, and it won't be authentic to yourself. And then for a lot of folks, what they will do is, because they're so concerned about everybody else, they will just, they won't have an authentic voice anymore. It's like they become a pair of somebody else's words. Or the worst part is that they actually stop talking altogether. And I want you all to know there's someone that needs to hear what you have to say. And you just have to be willing to put yourself out there and say those things. Because again, and I've learned this, again, it just doesn't happen, right? You got to be willing to put yourself out there and you get feedback. But it's been so many times where I've had people who DM me, who's, message me and say like, man, those words that you said really made an impact. And it's just, I'm just speaking my truth. And I think that's, for a lot of us, we have to consider. But if we don't do that, there's no way to make an impact or income from your doctorate. And I'm just saying, for people who are looking to really, make a name for themselves out here, you really have to speak up and speak out, because if you don't, no one else will work. No one else will know who you are. No one else will be able to support you. I think that's really important. If there's, again, as I'm talking, if there's anything that resonates, let me know in the comments. Make sure that you follow, and also send this to 2 or 3 people that who want to make impact and income from their doctorate, but they don't know how or haven't thought through how to do so yet. So the four ways. The first way is that you got to first make this mindset shift that you're going to be willing to talk about what you do and talk about it often. Because along with this, I hear a lot of folks say that, I started going live and, no one's listening to what I got to say and I'm not making any sales. But then my question is, well, how long have you been doing it? And a lot of folks say, 2 weeks or 3 weeks or something like that. But it takes a long time to build momentum. Like, literally, I started doing this almost a year ago, going live. And then really, I was kind of doing it. And then starting around, I think it was October, I started going every week. And then what I saw is that every week I talked, sales increased. So it kind of helped me understand, like, the more consistent I am, people started to look for what I had to provide. And that's the thing about being consistent and just doing this over and over again. And then over time, things will get better. And that's really what has been the key. But it first starts with you being willing to put yourself out there. So if you're not willing to put yourself out there, don't complain when the things that you want in life don't happen. Because that, again, that is the first step in this process. So once you get through that and you start to make that mindset shift, the next piece I want to talk to is that for a lot of us that get doctorates, we are, taught about how to read and write the literature, all those things, right, that are important. But what we're not taught about often is how to communicate that work outside of higher education, outside of the peer-reviewed journal articles and the academic conferences. Like there's a space for that talk, right? But if you want to make impact and income, the second way you do this is by being able to communicate your work outside of academia. That is critical because the fact is that no one's reading these journal articles like that. Let's just be real. Especially if you have a very like niche research area, it's going to be you and a couple of scholars who really write about what you do. But I think there's some opportunity and there's some connection that you can make between what you study and broader issues happening in society in very different ways. And I think this is something that you have to develop this skill set, because if not, no one's going to know about who you are and what you do if you just stay in academia, or you will just be in academia. And that's cool if that's what you want to do. But you got to think about there's a big world outside of higher education. And I want you all to be a part of it and impacting with your thoughts and with your perspectives. And so you really have to think about that. And thank you, Teresa Moore says, great point on LinkedIn. So again, I think this is really important. And in order to do this, right, in order to communicate your work outside higher ed, you got to be creative a little bit. So I think a lot of times we are taught the science of academic writing, the science of all these things, but there's an art to it. And you got to kind of tap in a little bit to that creative side, even if you don't consider yourself creative. But best believe, if you want to make an impact and reach people outside of just your research area, you're going to have to do this. And I want to give an example for one of our clients. Shout out to Vanessa, who's doing some very innovative work in engineering, but her issue in engineering is related to housing. And they created this device and this app to improve how folks utilize like the climate controls in their apartments. And so literally she can take what she does in engineering and then talk about the work that she's doing with like climate control within an apartment building and efficiencies, and then relate that to broader issues happening with electricity or natural there was this op-ed that she had talked about with electric in terms of how people are utilizing their and lowering their electric bill and those types of things. That's something not directly related to her research, but she's able to communicate and talk about a broader issue. Now she can write about an impact policy. She can go to the power companies and talk about ways that they can change up how they, build clients, how they utilize this device. Like these are ways that you can communicate outside of just the ivory tower. And I think this is really important. And in order to do this, you not only have to be creative in terms of like how you're thinking through your ideas, but you have to really think through, and figure out, where do the audiences that want to know more about what you have to offer, where do they live? So whether that's online or offline. So if you're doing work, like for me, I'm doing work that supports doctoral students. I know a lot of you all are online. So that's why you see me online live, and I'm on everywhere. You'll see me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, because I know folks are searching all those different places for support to get through their dissertation program, the doctoral program. So if you're in, whatever field, you got to start thinking about, where do the people I know and need to talk to and maybe can buy my service, or, I can do my consulting with, where do they reside? And also, like, for instance, like I do research on, teachers. So of course, not only I'm going to talk about this online, but I'm also going to go offline and go to some of the conferences where teachers reside. Or also, because my work kind of intersects with school leadership, I'm going to go to the principal conferences. So maybe the National Association, like elementary school principals or secondary principals. I'm going to go to their venues. And it is really important to make this shift, because if not, again, no one's gonna know about you. And one way, and shout out to, I believe this is Ron who makes this point. It says that writing an op-ed piece now surrounding trust in the online retail space. Yeah, Ron, this is exactly what you should be doing to position yourself as the expert. These are some different ways to position yourself, because once you position yourself as the go-to person, people find you and they hire you. And then there's no even objection about cost, because they know you're the expert in this thing. And so again, that is real important. So Ron, you're right on the right path with that approach. And I think op-eds are a great place to position yourself as an expert. And don't worry about oftentimes it doesn't have to be so researchy, like the writing and the approach. It doesn't always have to be like that. It literally can be an experience that you've had that applies to maybe the venue that you're writing towards and the audience. So just to give an example, I went to a conference one time and I'm on a panel and we're talking about the use of social media to promote your research. So something similar to what I'm talking about right now. And I'm saying that, as faculty, we should be, not only writing for peer reviewed, publications, because that's what matters for, tenure and promotion, but we also should be writing op-eds and engaging in social media. And, after I gave my remarks, there was a faculty member who was a veteran in the back of the room who raised their hand during the Q&A and then just kind of tries to come at me and says, well, you're telling all these students the wrong advice. They only need to be worried about, writing for publication for peer-reviewed journals. And that particular faculty member couldn't fathom that you could do both and do them both well. Like, it makes no sense. But we had this exchange in that conference setting, right? And then immediately, like the next day, I wrote a piece. You can actually read it. It's in the diverse issues in higher education. I wrote a piece about how we should stop telling junior faculty to only write for peer-reviewed journal articles, because I think it's just bad advice. We do have to do that because that's important as a faculty member, but there are also other ways to communicate your work. And sometimes in higher ed, folks can't imagine a space where you could take what you do and translate it to somewhere else that makes better sense. You have more traction with it. And so that is really something all that got to consider. So the second way that's going to be able to make impact and income from your work is that you got to be able to communicate your research outside of academia. Because again, those are where all the policymakers are. That's where all the companies are that can, bring you in to do consulting. They're all not in the journal articles. Let's just be real. So you really got to think about how you're going to communicate your work outside of higher ed. The third way, so now I want to get a little more tactical, right? The third way, and I want to talk about how you actually make income here with this particular strategy. What becomes important as a way to make impact and income from your doctorate is that you got to be willing to package your intellectual property and leverage your skill set. Again, a lot of us in doctoral programs are taught about generating new knowledge, contributing to the literature. It's a piece, right? But we're not talking about how do you take what you know, what's inside your brain, and then package that to sell. There is nothing wrong with that. You all have expertise and skill sets that you have developed in these doc programs, and even stuff that experiences that you had before you got into your doc program that you can leverage to make income. And so I want to give you some simple ways that you probably know of, but you're not maybe thinking about in this way that you can package your expertise and make income. First of all, is probably the most recognizable is from books. And so I really think books are a great way. If you have a skill set and you're trying to position yourself as an expert, I think books are a great method to really put yourself out there and really position yourself as the expert. But here's my only caveat on books. Like, I know if you're a faculty member for higher ed, they want you to do the academic publishers. I get it. You got to play the game, get your tenure and promotion, for whatever you need, play the game to get it. But here's what I've come to learn from the academic publishing side is that there's not a lot of money in it, to be quite frank, because what ends up happening is that you'll sign a publishing deal and, the royalty will be about maybe 8%. Some folks may have a 20% deal. I don't, I'm not sure what folks are getting. And traditionally, in my experience, I've had anywhere from 5 to 10% in terms of the royalty on the book. But then first, you got to recoup all the marketing costs that publisher is doing, and then you make money off the book. Again, you're getting the money a little bit at a time. What I've come to learn is that if you have an expertise, I'd rather self-publish the book and have a 100% ownership. But that takes a whole different mindset shift. So most definitely, you got to play the game in terms of the academic publishers, that prestige and all that stuff is important for higher ed. But when you look at it, it's kind of messed up the way the system works, because essentially what's happening is that for a lot of faculty members, you're giving away your anybody else who does, works with academic publishers, you're giving away your expertise and all your intellectual property, and you're literally signing it over for pennies. And now the publisher is able to market your book and make money for the, in forever, past when you have transitioned. And I'd rather, why not put the book together myself and then sell it? Because that's what I did with 14 Secrets to a Done Dissertation. I wanted to use this as a teaching tool when I went around the country talking about the dissertation process. So with the help, I worked with the book coach, Jasmine, shout out to Jasmine Womack, to help me kind of develop and put the book together. And I've been selling it all over the place. Like first month, I sold 200 copies. All those funds come directly to me and not to a publisher. It's a completely different mindset. And at this point, We've sold over 700 copies of the book, soon be on the way to 1,000. I'm hoping to ramp this thing up to sell, a couple thousand every year. But this is the thing that we really got to consider is like, how do we package our own expertise in something that we have 100% ownership of? And I think that's really important. That's why I wrote this book and did it and self-published it in this way. And here's what I love about when you go the book route is that it's a product that you create one time that you can sell over and over and over again forever. And not only, are you able to generate the income from the book sales, that's just the beginning of it. You can now have other products that you sell because you wrote this book and you position yourself as an expert. And let me just give you an example. I wrote 14 Secrets to a Done Dissertation, but that's for a lot of folks. I may not be able to interact and work with everyone in our program, but then there are folks who are in our program who spend high ticket to work with us, who spend thousands of dollars to work with us. You see what I'm saying? So there's opportunity based off that IP. You got to be willing to put yourself out there. So books is the one place that you probably know most often and you see, but I just see a lot of us giving away our IP to publishers. I just always want to put that caveat out there. And one thing to consider with the book, some people ask, well, it costs money to produce a book. True. But you could be all in on a book by printing, your editor, maybe to edit the text for you, your book cover designer, you're probably all in getting your ISBN number, all those little small pieces of the process, you're in a couple $1,000s. But literally you sell a couple 100 books, you recoup your money right back. I mean, literally all 100 books, you'll probably recoup all of the costs that you put into developing the book. And now once you have recouped your investment in the book, the returns are infinite. It's forever. So this is something we got to think about when we talk about making income from our doctorate. Another piece that I think a lot of us don't consider, I think is underutilized, is like the creation of digital products. So some of the include like ebooks, but you can have resource guides that you can sell. You can have online like mini courses, all these things that you can have. You see a lot of people doing it on Teachable and all those things, all those other platforms, Kajabi, all those things. You can sell those courses and really make decent money. And I'm going to talk about how to price in a minute, because I've seen some crazy stuff on like Teachable when I go on there and folks giving away their work for like $15, like these full out courses. That's a whole nother problem. But again, this is something we got to think about with digital products. And shout out to Mark. Mark says, agree, I've done it with the book. Yeah, Mark, this is a way to leverage, your IP. I think this is really important. It's something we got to consider. So digital products. But then from those, from your book that you then turn into your digital product, you can have your book and then create a course from the book. And then from that one thing, then you could, have a workshop series. Maybe you have a workshop for your ideal audience, maybe who the book was for. I do this with, 14 Secrets to a Done Dissertation. We have our university partnership program where we work with universities. And I do like a 3 to 6, workshop series with universities and their doctoral students. These are things that spawn off the one product. And it's something that you developed in your mind, which is super, it's amazing to me. And I wonder why more people aren't doing it. But a lot of us don't know the skill set. And then a lot of us just aren't taught in doc programs. And so this is the way we're trained. We're trained in many ways to be workers and busy bees doing the work. But we haven't really been taught about like how to be the owners and the producers of things that generate income. And I think that's really important. Dr. Saunders says, these tips are so helpful. I've been thinking about digital products forever. Yeah, digital products are great. Like even with us at Done Dissertation, you can go on our website right now at www.thedonedissertation.com and grab our 10 dissertation mistakes guide. That's a digital product. And that's actually free for folks if they want access to it. So again, you have opportunity here with digital products. And again, it's like a book. You create it one time and then you sell it over and over and over again. And I'm all about those things because now you're leveraging your IP to generate income. And now with digital products in particular, those are things that sell without you having to sell it. So now if you have your infrastructure right and you're able to drive traffic to your digital product, it can continue to sell. It'll be distributed to the customer without you even have to touch it. You just have to have the systems in place. So literally, you all are sitting on a gold mine with your IP and the thoughts you have in your head, but you have not either thought about putting them out there or just don't know, just are too scared to. I know a lot of folks are scared to put their work out there. And then the last one I want to talk about in terms of like leveraging your intellectual property is becoming a public speaker. I know this is not for everybody. So you kind of have to find the medium that works for you. So some people are great with writing. So again, with this, you leverage your voice in terms of public speaking. You can do this on the writing side, maybe have a column. I had a series that I wrote with a higher ed firm that I used to get paid per article. I mean, that's the way I'm leveraging my IP to do that. But the speaker is great because you're putting yourself out there, in those spaces where, your ideal clients are. And then from those speaking engagements, you get on more people's radars. The more eyeballs you have, the more opportunities there are to sell your product. So when I go give a talk, it's very well that I'll go give a talk and then I'll sell, 75, 100 copies of the book to the organization that brought me in to talk. These are the ways that you can really like group it all together. And speaking is one great way. And it's something I'm investing in right now to really develop as a speaker. And shout out to Dr. Jenna, who's my speaking coach, like really helping me kind of think through this aspect of my business. I think it's really important, something that we can leverage our story, but we just have to be willing to put ourselves out there. And again, if there's any questions that you all might have as I'm chatting, feel free to drop them all in the comments. I'd love to hear what questions you all are thinking about. And then the fourth way that, you can make impact and income from your doctorate is that it goes down to being willing to invest in yourself to develop a skill quicker than you can do it on your own. This is the cheat code to creating more impact and income. And it goes for both ways. Like for me at this point, I'm all about investing in experts who can get me to a place I can't do by myself, or that I would take me forever to do. It just makes sense because what I'm finding is that if you wait to get help, not only are you losing out on money because there's opportunity costs, right? But you're also losing out on time. And I think time is infinitely more valuable than money because you can't get back the time you wasted. And I see this happening with a lot of doc students who are trying to get their dissertations done, and they're stuck in ABD land. And then rather than getting help, they rather just spin around in circles. But it's like, why not invest some money in yourself to get the help that you need to get you out faster so that you can do all the things that you want to do after? We always got to think about the return on your investment, but it first starts with being able to invest and being willing to invest in something to get you to skill more frequently. And I think it's really important because I see a lot of folks who are just struggling, and I would even call it the equivalent of drowning, right? And I find a lot of folks would rather drown than invest in themselves in drowning their problems and rather than getting help to get out of the water. You know what I'm saying? It just makes no sense. Why put yourself through that agony when you can work with someone who has a proven process and method to get through that? And just to give you an example, so I don't recommend things that I haven't done myself. So I have invested heavily in myself, not only getting the doctorate, but then like in my business and in my personal development, and just in general, right? So I'll give you two examples. So one is that, for those, I'm an athlete, right? I love to do sports, all those things. I was a college basketball player. And so one of my goals on my bucket list back in, it was 2017, was to participate in a triathlon. So for all of you know about a triathlon, it usually is around depending on the length, it's a swim, it's a run, and it's a biking of some sort, right? And so I feel like, okay, I had the biking down. I feel like I was pretty comfortable with the bike. I used to take campers on this trip. We'd go to C&O Canal. It's like 185 miles. We would do that, the whole canal. I could do the biking. I felt good about that. The running, I thought, okay, depending on how long it is, I'll train for that. The running felt good. Even though I hate running because that's like basketball is like punishment, like running sprints. But it was something I could do. But it was that swimming, right? I know how to swim. I was a lifeguard at one point. I get how to swim. But I felt like it was something different about swimming in a triathlon. Like it was 750 meter swim. I was like, there is no way I could just do this cold without a lot of training. And then I felt like, well, I know how to swim, but am I swimming the most efficient way? Because I don't want to drown out here trying to, to check off this thing off my bucket list. And so what I did, I invested in a swim coach. So literally for weeks, I would go to my swim coach, her name was Amber, and I would go to Amber at the local pool, and she would, she literally would start me off from the basics. Even though I could swim, we would start off from the basics and then build me up so that she would give me different strategies so that if I got tired by freestyle swimming, or I could do a backstroke, or, I could do a butterfly, depending on what I felt comfortable with at that point in the water. And that training was so helpful, but it took me to invest in myself to get through that. And then also, and just to give a backstory, at that point, I ended up not doing the triathlon because here's what happened. I did all the training, and then I realized when you do the triathlon, the swimming part is in the open water. When I had trained in like an indoor pool and doing laps. So I wasn't trained for that. And I was like, look, and then I saw what was happening in triathlons where folks were kicking and all that stuff as you're swimming. I'm like, yo, y'all not about to catch me out here, even though I'm well trained, athlete. But y'all not about to catch me out here trying to about drown in this water, just trying to check off this thing. So what I ended up doing was an aquathon. And the aquathon, luckily, it was just the swim and the run, but the aquathon was in an outdoor pool. So that was more like how I trained, so it made sense. But again, it took investing. Had I not invested in the coach, I probably would not have been prepared for that swim because, there was no way I would have done that and trained myself in the right way to get ready for that. But what I see is that, a lot of us just stay stuck in our problems and don't investigate the help to push us forward faster. And I think that's a secret and a cheat code to making impact income from your doctorate. And again, I've done this in my business. When I wanted to develop 14 secrets to a Done Dissertation, I hired a book coach, someone who could teach me not only how to put the book together, because I kind of knew that part in terms of the writing, but who taught me how to market the book, how to launch the book, how to then turn the book into other products. Shout out to Jasmine Womack, right? And so I invested in myself. I needed to do that. And now the return is forever. Every book I write, I have that same skill set that will never leave. So again, I think this is really important. I've also invested in business coaching. In order to, grow Done Dissertation, I had to invest in coaching to kind of give me a perspective and get me to a place that I couldn't see for myself. And literally, I heard this from someone. It was like, the fact, if you have a desire to make millions of dollars, because you haven't invested in someone who can help you make millions, you're wasting $1 million per year in opportunity. And I'm like, that makes sense. Like the quicker I get the skill set that I can go do whatever my goal is, the faster I'll get there. And so it makes no sense to stay stuck and not invest in myself. Because again, the return on investment when you investing in yourself is infinite. And I think this is a way that you have to think about making impact and income from your doctorate. It's called you ever think about investing more in yourself. And I see a lot of folks doing this, and it didn't make sense to me at first, but now, I'm all about like, how do I invest more in myself to get the skill I need to get to where I want to go? And that's why right now I'm working with a speaking coach. I want to do more public speaking around things that are important, that I find important. I want to tell more about my story. And I had to work with somebody who had helped me develop my message. So that's why I work with Dr. Jenna, who's a speaking coach. Like all these things, and investment in yourself is really important. And you have to be willing to put that in and not be so concerned about like, this is a bill I got to pay, but like, this is an investment in me that's going to give me infinite amount of return. And so those are the 4 ways to make an impact and income from your doctorate. But I want to give one bonus because this goes around when you all start charging for your services. I really want to talk about this a little bit. One way you're going to make impact and income from your doctorate is actually charge the value for the service that you provide. I see a lot of folks that are and particularly in higher ed. So it could be just where I sit. Folks have a lot of scarcity mindset. Like they're afraid to charge. And I'm like, look, you have a skill set. You have a value that you're providing somebody. You need to be charging for that. And what I find a lot of folks, when they do this and they're trying to charge, we often fall in this kind of employee mentality is charging by the hour. And depending on what you do, it's not really beneficial to charge by the hour, because if you're really good at what you do and you're efficient, if you charge by the hour, then it takes you less time to do something. So you're actually limiting the amount of money you can make. And then like charging by the hour is helpful for folks who are not efficient in their work. But for the consumer, do they want to pay somebody, $10,000, but it could take someone else to do for $1,000 of their time when we're charging by the hour? That's just something we got to consider. But what I'd rather you do is charge by the result. So what is it that is the end result of them working with you? We charge by folks who work with us. Our goal is to get you to your dissertation proposal or your final defense in 4 months. That's what people are paying for, the outcome. We have a system to get you there, but that's what you're paying for. If you follow the system, you get to the outcome. This is something that you got to start doing. But a lot of us, when we are, thinking of doing impact and income, we are charging pennies. And just to give an example, I had a colleague who I was working with to help them with their business. And we looked at what their current pricing structure was. And per month, this person was charging it was like $300 a month, right? Cool. For you, you all might be saying $300 a month is cool. You get 10 clients, all right, $3,000 a month. All right. That could be a nice little side income. But when we did the math, while it was $300, they were putting in I think it came out to about 18 hours of work or something like that for the $300 for the month. It was something outrageous. And basically when we took our calculator out and we did the math, it came out to like $16 an hour. And I'm like, look, if you're going to work for $16 an hour, you might as well get a promotion at where you work and put the side business away and don't have to worry about the overhead, taxes, all that stuff, and websites. You might as well put that over there. And when we had this conversation, they literally went from 300 to 3,000, just like that, because of what they were providing in the service to their client. And again, this is not just to say just be charging whatever, because there is a market value for what you all do. But this is something we got to start thinking about. And I think this is a way to make impact and income from your work. We got to start thinking about our work as providing value to somebody else. And we got to start charging by the value, not necessarily the hourly and what the time you have to put in. Because again, no one can, your time is valuable. So no one can ever pay you what your time is worth, because that's an infinite number. But people can pay you for what you provide, the service and result that you provide. And so that's just another one I wanted to throw out there, because I just seen it happen for a lot of folks, and everybody's trying to leverage their doctorate and make more money. But then when I find out what you're charging for consultancy, I'm like, man, that's pennies. And if you're going to, make $15 an hour, you might as well just stay at work and work some more time. Like I said, if you're in higher ed as a faculty member, if you're going to charge that on the side, you might as well just go become an administrator, and double your salary. Keep one job and then just figure it out from there. It just makes no sense to me to take on the burden of developing your business. And so with that, those are the 4 ways, and plus the bonus about how you can make impact and income from your doctorate. I want to open it up for any questions, thoughts, or comments you all might have before we wrap it up. And again, shout out to Corey Conti for the polo, Done Dissertation polo. I'll make sure I drop your link as well, so folks know how to reach out to you to get custom clothing. Any questions? Go ahead and drop them in the comments. I hope this was helpful for you all to think through in terms of, really putting yourself out there and making impact and income from your doctorate. Thank you to everybody who's tuned in on Instagram as well as on Facebook. I know I got some folks in the Velocity Group Coaching Program, so shout out to y'all for tuning in. And then for my other folks who have been watching, definitely tune in. This is interesting. My printer is going off. They must be printing something from upstairs or something like that. These are things that happen sometimes when you're on live. So any questions or thoughts or comments? So Mark asks, who is the publisher of your book? Great information. So actually, I am the publisher of the book. But in terms of the printing of the book, I forget the name of the company I used. You should be a message. I'll shoot if you have a book that you're trying to get printed. I'll send you the company name. I just can't remember off the top of my head. But I am the publisher of this particular book. Again, I've done other academic books. Actually, the one behind me with the young woman hugging a relative, dissertating during the pandemic. That book was published by Information Age Publishing. So that's through an academic publisher. So again, I understand you got to do both depending on your position in higher ed. I got to do both. So that's how I approach that. But yeah, Mark, just send me a message if you have any questions about that. And Ron says more to think about and digest. Yeah, man, you're in a great space, man, in your research area. Like you have such overlap with these companies who are trying to figure out how to keep trust of their customers, like trusting their customers like their number one concern. So like you can definitely develop a consulting package to help make sure that companies do that and don't have these information breaches. And Doc Diller says, so helpful. I love what you're doing. Thank you so much, Doc. I appreciate you for that comment. And can you share the websites of those who helped with your process? Yes, I will jump in the comments after and do so. And then if for some reason I don't do it, Dr. Peters, please send me a message and I'll make sure I do that so folks can reach out to them directly. And for my doc students who are on, if you need support to get through this dissertation process, make sure that you grab our book, 14 Secrets to Done Dissertation, a guide to navigating the dissertation process and finishing in record time. This book is a quick, easy read, and it's really written for you, the doctoral student, to develop the mindset needed to finish this process. The process does not have to take forever, which is often not told to you all. So I provide the strategy that I've used to coach over 100 doctoral students through the process in this book. So get the strategy you need to be successful. Again, it makes no sense to drown in our problems while we can get a solution. And this is an easy, quick read solution that you can get to really propel you forward with your dissertation process. And so if you want a copy of the book, you can visit our website at www.thedonedissertation.com/book to grab your copy. And for my folks who are interested in some of our other products, we do have a 10 dissertation mistakes guide that you can grab. at www.dissertationmistake.com. For our folks on Instagram, you get access to all the things we provide by clicking on the link on our bio. It'll take you right to everything you can download and purchase and do everything right from there. But we definitely want to make sure you have the support that you need. And for my doctoral students who don't have a community, I want to invite you to join our From ABD to PhD community on Facebook. If you visit www.donedissertationgroup.com, you can join our support group. Make sure that you answer the 3 questions so that we can let you in. And so any questions that folks might have, I see some stuff popping up in the chat. So let me just double check. Oh, shout out to my guy, Darren. He said the dissertation process definitely does not take as long as people think. Shout out to Darren. So Darren is a member. He was in our January 2022 cohort in the Velocity Group coaching program. Started with in January, wrote his proposal and defended his proposal. I think it was in April. And now he's got his whole dissertation is done. He's waiting to defend. I think he defends in 2 weeks, Darren, is that right? I can't remember. I know it's this month. So literally from January to July. Like, look, it doesn't take a long time. If you're committed and you're ready to put the work in, you can definitely do that. And shout out to you, Darren. Again, I'm really impressed with what you've been able to do in such a short period of time. I just love to see it. And Darren's a principal too. So like he's doing it. And Lynn D says, good info about writing and publishing. Thanks for sharing the Jasmine Womack coaching. Perfect. Yeah, tell her I sent you. She's super dope. Shout out to Jasmine. She's really good people. And again, you got to invest in yourself to get things done and get to a place where you don't have the skill set to do yourself. And Shreese Moore says, excellent insight and support ideas. Thank you. No problem. Thank you for tuning in. Yeah, shout out to Darren. Yeah, 2 weeks. So Darren comes in, high school principal, starts in January. He's finishing his doctoral program, finishing the dissertation process in July. 7 months. It don't take forever. All it takes forever is because we think it takes forever in our mind. And if you're willing to put the work in and really to undo the mindset that you have about what this process needs to be, I promise you, once you undo that mindset, it is freeing, and you'll be so surprised about how fast you can move through this process. Literally, we got clients right now in our new cohort who are just flying through and really getting a lot of progress because they have been able to make that mindset shift. Oh, shout out to Jasmine, right? So Jasmine Womack was the one I talked about on about the book coaching. So if you need support there, definitely check her out. Jasmine, you just drop your link in. Definitely let folks know about what you do. Then you got folks showing some love in the comments. Shout out to Carrie for the congratulations. And Jasmine asked a great question. She said, I'll be applying for my doctoral program in the spring. Should I decide on my topic now? I would say that not necessarily your topic, but an area of research, right? So let's say you're actually, Jasmine, what you can do for me in the chat, in the comments, drop what you're thinking about studying right now. And I'll talk through how to think through it a little broader because it might be helpful for other folks too. So as you think about it right now, what would your topic be in your head as you think through it right now? And Mark asked, what number can we talk to you? So if you're a doctoral student who's interested in getting some support to get through the program, just shoot me a DM and then we'll send you information about how to apply to our program. So yeah, Jasmine, let me know what a potential topic is, because then like I said, I think we could talk through it and give you some perspective. And so as you're doing that, I want to talk about how I thought through this, right? I came into my doctoral program with one topic. And it's okay to make shifts because this happens as you learn more about what's been done. So I actually went to my dissertation, my doctoral program, thinking I was going to study music educators, because at the time I was a music education and special education teacher. And I wanted to study something about, how to get more Black men into music education. I thought that was the route. But as I kept reading the literature, there wasn't a lot about music education. And then for me, I didn't want that to be my area of expertise in music education, because I thought I was going to pigeonhole me in music ed. And I thought my work was a little bit broader than that. So then I shifted to focusing on Black male, students. And so when I'm in my first couple of classes in my doctoral program, I'm writing about Black male students and their educational outcomes. And so that was my broad area. And then as I read more, I started to find that there was a lot of research about Black boys in K through 12 and why they weren't successful. So then I started to turn that around and said, well, why don't I focus on Black boys in schools who are successful? And then I started looking at that high achieving literature and on Black boys. And then I found that there was a lot, it was kind of saturated in that area. And I said, well, let me do something. Let me look at the higher ed because I want to do something slightly different. And so then I kind of positioned and turned myself to looking at higher ed issues around Black male student success. And I found that in that space, there was a lot done on Black male student experiences and high achievers at predominantly white institutions. Right, shout out to some of the folks I've been reading, like Sean Harper, Sharon Friesberg, Terrell Strayhorn, Kimberly Griffin. I know they were doing some writing at that time. Like, it was so many folks, Ronnie Ellington, so many folks I was reading. And then from that work, I started to say, well, why don't we shift the focus on HBCUs? And then I know like Fred Bonner was doing some work there, and I wanted to contribute in that area. And that's how I kind of figured out and I zoned in on what my dissertation was going to be on. But sometimes it's just a journey. So some people come in, I always say have a broad area, and then every class you kind of take that area, you look at it through a different lens. And so Jasmine, thank you. You said, I'm undecided, but definitely something dealing with educational leadership in the online coaching space. So that's the broad topic, Jasmine. I would just leave it at that. So when you go into your, in the doc program, you're going to be, in some ed leadership classes, and you're going to start looking at literature. What do people talk about, and how do they talk about leadership in relation to online coaching? And I don't know that area. I know educational leadership because I write about issues there, but I haven't seen a lot about online coaching. So again, what you're probably going to end up doing is pulling the literature from ed leadership, and then you're going to pull stuff from online coaching. It may be different terms for that, and we'll figure out what those terms are about how they talk about in the literature and combine them. But in every class, so if you got a class on curriculum and instruction, right? I'd be, my paper would be like, how do online coaches develop curriculum in their programs? Like, I had to think of like study ideas. So like that's a, curriculum instruction course. But now if I'm in a leadership, course, I'm looking like, how do online coaches develop their, what's a framework that they develop their leadership through in terms of leading others? That's a different lane. Now, policy, I might have something or policy or ethics. I might have something about what are the ethical considerations online coaches have about like program development or about, sales or all those things. You might have a perspective about online coaches, but related to some form of ethics. So like I would take every class and it would be something about online coaches in every class that you run through. That would make things so much easier for you. And then what it will allow you to do is learn the literature. It will allow you to learn the key people who write on your topic. And then it will allow you to quickly like figure out what your dissertation, because in Jasmine, you're already in business, right? So the honestly, the same process as how you develop your program is the same process to write a dissertation. It's like, all right, there's all this noise in the market, right? And you figured out that there's a lane for teaching people how to write books and teaching people how to then market and launch their book and develop a coaching program from their book. So you create your lane. The same thing's gonna happen with your dissertation. You're gonna start very broad, like for you book publishing, like that's broad, right? A lot of people do that. And then you start to narrow in. So right now it might be online coaches and some form of leadership. And then you're just going to zero in. And as you start to get clear and you kind of start moving things out of the way. You start to find your lane, you find your niche, and that's what you stick with. And that's what becomes your dissertation at the end of this. And Dr. says, great advice. I was just brainstorming this. It also helps you internalize your learning. For sure. Yeah, you got to start thinking through this. And then for any of you all, particularly if you're new in your doc program, thinking about going in one, you got to start developing a community, right? And so it's important not only to be thinking these things in your head, but have other people you can bounce ideas off of. That way you kind of you get through this process, because it's a community aspect. You got to have it because some people have new ideas and ways to think through. And I really think that this is the way to get through the dissertation process faster. If you're trying to do it yourself, it can be done. People do it all the time, but it's really hard to do it. Any other questions? Yeah, so those are some good topics. So cool, Jasmine. I'm glad that was helpful. But yeah, Jasmine, you already got you already have the mindset for this. It's just a matter of taking that we do in business and then applying to the dissertation. For me, it was the opposite. I already knew the research stuff and how to do that. I had to apply it to the business. Any other questions, thoughts, or comments? Y'all are live tonight because I got a lot of going on Instagram. Shout out to everybody who's been on Instagram, and for the folks who have stayed on strong for on LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter. Any other question before we wrap up for the evening? Again, make sure that you all get the help that you need. Don't sit in these doctoral programs going at it by yourself. And there's opportunity to make impact and income. Don't let folks with a scarcity mindset tell you otherwise. And I promise you, if you put the work in, get your doctorate done, Do it in the right way. You position yourself as the expert. All the income opportunities will be there for you after you finish this thing, but it's got to get done first. And you're sitting on too much income and impact not to finish your doctorate. So if you need help and support, make sure you reach out to us. Go on our website at www.thedonedissertation.com. Look at our services, look what we provide, and then reach out to us to get the support that you need. But again, until next week, I look forward to seeing you all again on another episode of Done Dissertation Office Hours. I'm Dr. Ramon Goins, founder of Done Dissertation, where we demystify the dissertation process so that doctoral students can write and defend their dissertation in 1 year or less. Have a good evening, everybody.